What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. So I wanted to address this. This was a cool conversation, and some people have been hitting me up because a couple of my predictions in recent memory, in difficult fights, keep in mind, have been money, and they turned out to be pretty true. And a lot of things that I said in my prediction videos showed up in the actual fight, and that would be Sergey Kovalev, Bernard Hopkins last night. Also, even in the Nicholas Walters, Nonito Donaire fight, which was another hard for me to predict type of fight. So a lot of people are saying, "Oh yeah, you're psychic and help me with lottery tickets and pick a girlfriend," just crazy stuff. But I want to break down a little bit of why, from my stance, why Sergey Kovalev won. And there's a few reasons, and there's a few reasons that I picked him. I mean, most of the reasons are in the prediction, but I want to tell you from my perspective why Sergey Kovalev won last night. Now, I think perhaps one of the biggest things in this particular fight is the power of underestimation. You know what I mean? When you underestimate somebody, you do yourself a disservice. You do it for, it happens for a variety of reasons, I guess you could say. But the reason you don't want to do that is it's boxing. And you got to give guys like Mayweather credit and guys like Hopkins and Kovalev and stuff for doing what they do. You know what I mean? Boxing is a brutal sport. And to look good ongoing for multiple fights, knowing one punch can, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just recently seen, let's say, a couple fights where big power punchers looked horrible. Luis Carlos Abregu, he looked suspect against Saddam Ali. That was a good breakout performance from him. Also, you look at the Selçuk Aydin versus Victor Postal. Now, these are guys that, had you used your skills better, you might have looked better in those particular fights because you were the power puncher. You have the style. You're typically known as being a tough fighter and that kind of thing. But it's all about the setup. And I think to underestimate is just a gross mistake. I think Bernard Hopkins truly did that. He kind of bought into the hype of I'm the alien and who is this dude? You know what I'm saying? He's a motherfucker from Russia. He ain't seen what I seen, which is true. I mean, Bernard Hopkins has a deep resume, deeper than a lot of people give him credit for. And you still can't underestimate someone for that reason. So I think that's one thing. I don't think he gave Kovalev the proper kudos or whatever for what he has done. And I tell you guys all the time, do I want to see the best fights possible? Hell yes. But from seeing people in with limited competition, as long as it's not no fucking super bum, you know what I mean, bum 2000, I can pick up and gauge little things about them. Kovalev, he wasn't in with like complete and utter like fucking this person has a losing record. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. There's different severities of bums, if you will, and guys like the people he fought, like Ishmael Salak and guys like that, they're cool, middle of the road, at least like fringe content, decent people. You know what I mean? Decent bodies that you, if you don't fight them like with the right game plan, you know what I mean, they can make you look bad and stuff like that. So when I see guys like Kovalev and Triple G, even though they are fighting limited competition, they're not fighting all-stars and Hall of Famers and shit like that. Not saying I want this, and I know a lot of you motherfuckers, my bad, sorry about that. I know a lot of you guys try to bend and twist my words and stuff. I am not saying I want them to fight limited competition for several fights. However, you can still gain something as long as they're fighting a little bit above average, mediocre competition. And I've seen those things like in Triple G. Started to see it against like Canelo when he was fighting limited competition, and Kovalev as well. So that's another thing. You could still pull and see what they're doing right. It's just ultimately, what are those skills going to look like when they reach that grand stage? Same thing with Nicholas Walters. That's why I picked him to beat Nonito Donaire by stoppage, and Donaire had never been stopped. I told you, because he is calculated. He was, and I said, he has that sneaky uppercut, and that's really what, in my opinion, that one punch I told you guys to look for, that's what set up everything, because that created the first knockdown. You know what I mean? That was the ebb and flow that changed the course of that fight, knocking your opponent down for the first time. Because now Nicholas Walters is like, yeah, I can hurt this motherfucker. He's not a robot. So that's one thing. I think BHOP underestimated Kovalev. That's one thing. I say this on my channel a lot. Perception is reality. So that being said, since perception is reality, if you have the perception that this guy is just like more of a one-dimensional slugger, you can perhaps prepare like that. you prepare for a one-dimensional slugger. So Kovalev and John David Jackson, they come up with a great game plan because, again, perception is reality. To me, Bernard Hopkins perceived Kovalev as a Ruslan Provatnikov at 175. He's like, oh, I can exploit this. I've done more. I've seen more. But it was the element of surprise because Kovalev actually did some smart things in there. He didn't just come try to bulldog. We know he's the vicious puncher, but he did pretty much the opposite of what probably Nassim Richardson and Bernard Hopkins anticipated. He fought smart. He fought more of a technical fight. He didn't just try to like, hey, I'm a KO artist, so I'm just going to try to knock this dude's block off. If he had a fought like that, he might have lost this particular fight because that's what Bernard Hopkins was more or less banking on. Him to fight aggressive, get reckless, counter. We knew Bernard Hopkins at this age is not necessarily the volume guy where he's going to just let his hands go. Most people at this age, I mean, the only person I could think of is possibly maybe like Marquez. He's in his 40s and he still lets his hands go pretty good. But Mayweather doesn't really let his hands go. He uses his brain. He uses his legs. He another thing, Mayweather's a little bit different because Mayweather, he doesn't let his hands go like he did in the lower divisions because he has brittle hands. That's one thing. And then two, it doesn't matter because he can keep you honest because he's very, very accurate. Him and Rigondeaux are the most accurate punchers in the sport in terms of how many shots they throw versus how many they land, the actual ratio, the percentage. So that's a little bit different for those two guys because they have that high accuracy. So who cares about throwing 800 punches if you only land 20? You know what I'm saying? I would much rather conserve my energy, especially if I'm an old fighter, conserve my energy and then throw 250 punches but land 90 of them. You know what I'm saying? It's a better ratio. It makes sense like that. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if you're doing these throwing 1,000 punches. That's cool if you're in good condition to do that. But if you're not landing it and you're at a lower connect rate, then it doesn't matter. So, I forgot what I was even saying leading up to this. But as far as BHOP, I think Kovalev just surprised him because he would take a step back. He didn't try to bulldog him. He didn't try to rush him. He didn't try to fight like the quote-unquote brawler. I'm going to knock your block off. I'm younger. I'm stronger. I'm Russian. I must break you. You know what I mean? He didn't do that. He didn't have that mentality. He actually presented it like he was a boxer puncher, like he was the slick guy in there. You know what I'm saying? And I think that threw it off. And then he got confidence, and this is what I really like from Kovalev. He got confidence in the first round by knocking down a legend who I don't recall in recent memory BHOP being knocked down. I might be wrong. If I am, leave it in the comments. But in his fights with Shumanov, I know he didn't get knocked down in that fight, but I don't think he got knocked down in the Murat fight or Tavoris Cloud or anything. I don't remember any other knockdowns in recent memory. So, I mean, that's huge. You know you have the power to hurt him. And again, he stuck to the game plan. Kovalev could have bounced on him and then just try to put it on thick and like, yo, fuck this. I'm gonna knock him out. He's been getting knockouts in the first 4 rounds in the past. You know what I mean? But he didn't do that. He stuck to the game plan. And that was beautiful. That's what boxing is about, making those adjustments and stuff like that. He's like, damn, I could hurt this dude, but I'm not going to punch myself out. I'm not going to get overexcited. I'm not going to lose my composure. And, you know what I mean? I've seen it happen too many fucking times. Pacquiao, perfect example. Pacquiao Marquez 4. First of all, I'll make a separate video about that. But as far as Pacquiao Marquez 4, it was a good fight. It was a competitive fight. Both fighters had knockdowns. Pacquiao got overexcited and then got knocked out. That's basically, in a nutshell, what happened. He was winning that round. He was winning the round before that. And he got overconfident and got knocked out. Same thing with in the Ponce de Leon fight with Juanma Lopez in the rematch. Juanma was hurt. De Leon connected something and he was hurt and he was like wobbled and he tried to go for a kill. That's when these fighters are fucking dangerous. You know what I'm saying? When you pit a dog and corner him in the alley with a stick, you know what I mean? Then that motherfucker might bite you. Same thing with Andy Lee and the Jackson prospect. Andy Lee was getting demolished the whole fight, and his opponent, Jackson, being young and not having that experience, he was like, fuck it, let me get him out of here. Let me have this highlight reel. Don't try to be the hero. Bottom line, don't try to be the fucking hero. and you want to have this highlight reel like, oh, I just stopped him. If the knockout presents itself, take it, but don't force it, because when you force it, things happen to you. And Kovalev didn't force the issue. He hurt his man in the first round, but if you look at his follow-up in the second round, he wasn't like getting aggressive and just getting countered to death or anything like that. And he made a 50-year-old work. He made Bernard Hopkins work. And another fight that comes to mind for me is Canelo versus Alfredo Angulo. That particular fight. Because if you watch that fight, I think the element of surprise played a part in that fight. And what I mean by that is Alfredo Angulo, he's like, oh, yeah, it's me. I'm the, you know what I mean? The event was called Toe to Toe. You know what I mean? And it was a good selling point, good marketing point. And I think Virgil Hunter and Alfredo Angulo, you look at Angulo, he's tough, he's rugged, he's like, oh yeah, I'm El Perro, you know what I mean? And he wants to have that machismo style, right? So he anticipated Canelo being more of the smarter boxer, and like he thought like, I'm the dog, I'm El Perro, Canelo's gonna run, Canelo's gonna try to use his feet, he's never been in with a big puncher as big as me, blah blah blah. He ain't fought no, you know what I mean, big punchers. He's fought a lot of small guys, etc. But that's not what Canelo did. It was the element of surprise. Canelo, from the opening bell, if you rewatch that fight, from the opening bell, he pounced on Angulo. He just put it on, and that set the tone. That's what boxing is about. It's psychological, and when you could set a tone like that, it's hard to break that slump in boxing. There's only two people in that ring, or three with the ref, but there's only two fighters in that ring, you know what I mean? And psychologically, that threw Angulo off, because he thought he was going to have to, like, you know what I mean, cut off the ring on Canelo. He didn't have to cut off the ring on shit. He had to stop cuts on his face and shit, but he didn't have to cut off the ring. Canelo came right up to his front door and like, bah, bah, and was like releasing vicious inside combos. And that's why, you know what I mean, I was like, damn, Canelo really brought the fight to him. And it surprised me too. So the element of surprise is huge. I think Sergey Kovalev, that was probably the biggest thing that he had going for him, is Bernard Hopkins thought he was going to fight a different style. And then from that point, it made Hopkins gun shy. He's like, damn, I'm 50. I can really feel this dude's power. I know Bernard Hopkins felt the dude's power. You know what I mean? He looked stunned or wobbled or hurt or whatever throughout the fight at a couple different spots. So the man's power seems like it's the real deal. And people like, some people, when they watch boxing, I don't know what they're looking for, but they're like, why didn't Bernard Hopkins, he hurt Kovalev, or, you know what I mean, backed him up? Why didn't he let his hands go? Because Bernard Hopkins, whether you like it or not, he's a seasoned fighter. He knows what he's getting into. He knows what the deal is. He has a lot of experience. And had he opened up, the more you open up with offense, the more you're susceptible for counter. And since Kovalev was already boxing good, then that's a huge risk. And it got to a point where it was like pretty much a landslide, and Kovalev was dominating to the point where it would have been a huge gamble. Bernard Hopkins haven't had a knocked out, or hasn't had a knockout in 10 years, and he would have to put it all on the line, and, you know what I mean, probably try to get knocked out for his effort because he was behind. That's why in sports you don't want to get drastically behind. You got to put some rounds in the bank. And then another thing, just the last thing I'll probably say, is Hopkins, since he was being so economical with his punches, he wasn't really placing the right type of punches to the point where he can drag him in deep waters and actually drown him. He just, like, he would have had to throw some punches to the body earlier and stuff like that. He wasn't really doing that. So it got to a point where I'm like, I really can't, I mean, even though I picked Hopkins to lose, it just got to a point where I'm like, I really can't see Hopkins pulling through this one and actually stopping Kovalev, because he hasn't made those early things that would pay dividends later, unless Kovalev just like completely gassed out. But he was fighting a measured pace, so, you know what I mean, as long as he had like decent conditioning, it didn't look like he was going to gas out, because he wasn't wasting punches, wasting energy. You know what I'm saying? He was trapping Bernard on the ropes, then letting his hands go. He wasn't just swinging at air and missing like Maidana was against Mayweather, or, you know what I mean, Donaire versus Rigondeaux, stuff like that. So it was a good fight, man. BHOP's a legend. He's tough. I definitely think he has one of the best chins in the game, because he took hellacious shots. Like to take a shot, one flush shot is one thing, but to take a shot flush and eat that man style, it then take a succession of other shots that are still hard, and you're on your feet. That is just fucking incredible. Like I said, make a movie about this man, Bernard Hopkins. I didn't lose no respect. Some of y'all talk reckless. I didn't lose no respect for Bernard Hopkins. He just, it was a tall order, younger guy, stronger guy. He at least was willing to challenge himself. He tested himself and he came up short. But to be honest, that's probably, you know what I mean, that's more often than not that's what happens. You know what I mean? Look at Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. versus Costa Tzu. Costa Tzu, he was hot at the time. He was a big puncher, and Chavez Sr., he had been in wars. He was like kind of at the tail end of his career, if you will. So things like that happen. And that's another thing when I'm doing predictions. You have to know the sport and know the history to know that history repeats itself. For Bernard Hopkins to have beat Kovalev, it's possible because it's boxing, but history repeats itself. So it would have been an uphill battle, especially after getting knocked down and not having a knockout in 10 years and stuff like that. And then the last thing I will say, and this is the very last thing, is Hopkins, he wasn't fighting. He has a great resume. Don't twist my words and no shit. He has a great resume, but his recent opponents did not prepare him for a Kovalev. I thought Kovalev would have murdered Shumenov. He would have murdered Murat and shit like that. Now, we give Bernard Hopkins a lot of credit for those fights. I do. But we're giving him credit more so because of what he's doing at his age, as opposed to like you know what I mean, he's looking good against those limited fighters at this stage of his career. That's why we give him credit. But if Kovalev was knocking those people out, people would say like, oh, he's fighting fucking bums, because those guys weren't really world beaters. You know what I'm saying? So in short, Hopkins, his recent opponents, not like his classic shit, but his recent opponents, I don't feel really prepared him. Yeah, they said Shumenov had power and high KO percentage, but the motherfucker was training himself. He didn't even have a trainer. He didn't even have a coach. Like, fuck that. You know what I mean? He's not on the level of a Kovalev, who I rate higher than a Shumenov. And Kovalev has a trainer that has been in the ring with Bernard Hopkins, yada, yada, yada. Let me know what you guys think. That's my take on it. Why Sergey Kovalev won. Hope you liked the video. Make sure you like it with the thumbs up button. As always, hate, comment, or subscribe. Till next video is Ego, signing off.